Okay, I have two phones, and the video on the other phone cut off because my storage got full. But I was like, praise God, I have two phones. Won't He do it? Okay, so back to what I was saying. Um, so the king, he puts them into the furnace, and he talks about how, didn't I put in three? Then why do I see four? And the fourth one, he basically has a likeness and the image of the Son of God. And the king, when he sees that happening in the fire, after them having professed and proclaimed their faith in God, passionately and intensely at that, he calls them out of the fire, and he calls them to be released. And not only does he call them out of the fire, when they come out of the fire, they're not singed, they're not burned in any way, there's no scent of smoke, their clothes, everything is fine. And he calls them out of the fire. And when he calls them out of the fire, because he knew the reason why they wouldn't bow down and why they wouldn't break underneath the pressure, because of them having faith and believing in the one true living God. Because of that, because of the way, they handled the situation before even going into the furnace, and how they professed and proclaimed their faith in God, and how they let it be known, this is the reason why I'm not bowing. Because my God is able to keep me, because my God has the ability to do it. And when they said what really set him off and caused him to turn that furnace up, which was, and even if he doesn't do it, he is still able to do it. Like, this is not a reflection. If we burn up and we get tossed to this furnace, know that our God is still real, and know that if he wanted to, he could have, because he is God and he's all powerful and he is good, period. And then once going into the fire, having professed and proclaimed, not hesitating, not no voice cracks. You don't hear about no backing down, not one time in this story from beginning to end. And then once they get in the fire, God manifests himself in that place. It's important that if you're going to talk the talk, you walk the walk. Again, having that consistent, constant, unchanging response to God, regardless of the circumstances of the situation that you're in, or how uncomfortable it may be, or how uncomfortable it may become while you're in it. It is important that your response and your faith and your belief and your trust and your hope in God never change, and it never alters in any way, despite the way the circumstances may change, because from beginning to end, their response to God was constant, from them refusing to bow down to that statue because they believed in God, and from them refusing to bow down even after the king had that furnace turned up 7 times hotter. Their response was the same, because they had faith and they believed in God. They believed, that no matter what happened, God was able, and God showed himself and he proved himself in that situation, because they did not waver in their faith from the beginning of it until the end. And because the king saw the manifestation of God in that place while they were in it, he praised their God. And that is one of the reasons why God has allowed this situation to go on right now, for him to get the glory through it, and for the people who we have, planted those seeds in, just by professing, just by witnessing, and talking about Jesus, and just by letting them know, how God has worked in our lives, what we believe in, not being inconsistent, and, living a life that witnessed and that testified of God. When they see, how we go through this situation and how God manifests himself in the situation, they will praise our God, and they will consider our God, and it will do something in them, because they're going to see a manifestation of, what we believe in this situation. They're going to see and witness the manifested power of God by how we go through this situation and how we come out, because our best witness is our lives. Your actions will always speak louder than your words. So no matter what you say, people are looking for what you do. And, if you fail to be that witness that you are supposed to be and that you are called to be, we are called his witnesses, that you are called to be as a believer, then essentially you give a bad it's a bad reflection of God that you give. Like, you make God look bad, and you don't witness and you don't testify of him right or appropriately, because according to your faith you are saying, okay, and I know I said one thing, but I'm acting completely different, and that's saying that you don't believe in God. And if, as a professed believer, your actions are saying that you don't believe, you are going to cause other people to continue not to believe. You're going to cause people who are struggling in their faith, to have even more problems, because again, people are watching you, whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not. So you have a responsibility to make sure that you are giving a proper witness, and a proper testimony of God in and with your life. And when they come out of the furnace, Nebuchadnezzar acknowledges and he praises their God, and he also promotes all of them, and he also makes a decree where they can worship their God. No one can persecute them, no one can badmouth their God. They can go ahead and worship and praise their God freely, because Nebuchadnezzar acknowledges their God as being almighty, as being all powerful. And when you are going through a situation, it's important that you allow room for God to do in that situation what he is looking to do, so that he can get the glory in it and through it. It's important that you submit to whatever the will of God is, for that situation, so that, in him working and in him moving, because you make room for God to move in your submission, that whatever it is that he's looking to manifest, can be manifested. I don't care if God made you a crazy promise, like you're gonna be a billionaire in 1.5 days. Highly unlikely. But if he said it, you better get to pushing and get to moving and hold your head up like you believe it's true, and it's going to manifest itself and it's going to come to pass, because again, we witness with our lives, and it's really important for us not to squander this time, and not to, within our own lives, sabotage the effort of God within our own lives, by becoming paralyzed by anxiety, paralyzed by fear, paralyzed by stress. Again, I'm not bad mouthing anybody if you've dealt with those issues or if you've dealt with those problems, but as a believer, I am going to hold you accountable for seeking out God, because it is your responsibility, because you have access to him, you have access to peace, you have access to a God who is able to regulate your mind. You have access to this. He is a God who has told you, come to me, all who are, heavy laden, come to me, bring me your anxieties. You can bring them to me. I will take them from you. I will give you peace, So just continue to hold on to your faith in God in and through this situation. We are going to be released from this soon. This is the final press. Continue to push. Be faithful to God. Do what he told you to do. And again, we have a constant God whose response has never changed. So even in this time, make sure your response to him is consistent and does not change as well. Remember, he is a solid rock.